I thought I would also cover some of the research that I've done through the Beef Cattle Enhancement Funds. This is a study that was started back in 2012, and we really wanted to target broomsedge management. And I got a question for you guys first before I really get started. Who all believes that broomsedge is all because of soil pH?
Well, I did.
A lot of people believed at one time that broomsedge invasion in pastures was solely due to soil pH. And while it may play a role in some cases, it doesn't always. So I'm just going to go through the 4 species that I have in front of me. I know a lot of you can't see everything, but the first one is called Bushy Bluestem. This actually gets pretty tall. This is one that's been mowed off several times along the roadside. But this one actually prefers higher pH. So the site in Arcadia where I'm doing the same trial as behind me, it is, the soil pH there is around 8. So, but this one is thriving there. This next one is Purple Bluestem. This is the one that's actually growing right behind me. And this appears to like soil pH. It's around 4, 4.5. So it likes more acidic soil. So we're going from basic soil to acidic soil. All right, another one that likes more acidic soil is this one clear over here. And this is just Chalky Bluestem. We see this more in our native range. We don't really see it in improved pastures all that much. I'll come across it every now and then, but not too often. And then the last one is just Broomsedge Bluestem. Okay, so this is the one that most quickly turns brown in the fall, and it grows anywhere from pH 5 to 6. So we have acidic loving broomsedges, and we have basic loving broomsedges, and then we have the ones that are in the middle. Okay, so when I first started this project, I thought, this is going to be pretty simple. There's not that many broomsedge species, and boy, was I wrong. When I first started looking into this, I quickly learned there's about 18 different broomsedge species in the state. Okay, so I don't think we can go across the board with all these species and make one recommendation. I think it's going to have to be tailor-made for each situation. But I think we are making some headway. So I did say that pH isn't a very good indicator of broomsedge invasion, but with this species particularly, we do see once we raise the pH of the soil that its growth starts to decline. So once we start raising the pH, and we did this in the greenhouse. So we started the study behind me in 2012. We also, on this species, we started also in 2012 in Arcadia on this species, and then in 2013 in St. Cloud on this species. So we came out and we decided on 3 treatments here. Since our pH was low, we added lime at 2 tons to the acre to try to get our pH level up. And then we started annual applications of 50 pounds of nitrogen, 25 pounds of phosphorus, and 50 pounds of potassium. And we have done that annually since we started. For the liming treatment, it took about 3 years before we started to see a decrease in our density. And we decreased our density by about 60%. So it took that long to see that much of a decline. From the fertility aspect, it took 4 years. So we first started to see our first decline in broomsedge and purple bluestem densities in 2016, this year. So starting in 2012, it took four years to get there. All right, I've already lost more hair than I'll ever be able to count in broomsedge. Okay? In Arcadia, on the bushy bluestem, that pH was 8, so we did not add lime at that location, but we did apply elemental sulfur, and we have done that at 100 pounds per year annually, as well as the same rate of fertilizer I said here, which is 50 pounds of nitrogen, 25 pounds of phosphorus, and 50 pounds of potassium. And at that location, we have not dropped the soil pH all that much, but it only took 2 years to start to see a decline in bushy bluestem density just by fertilizing. Okay, so that was pretty promising, and that is continuing to kind of hold steady. We dropped it by about 70%, and it's just kind of holding at that level. At St. Cloud, where we started in 2013, so we're a year behind, the pH was okay. We have not added any lime there, but we are fertilizing that annually, and we have not seen an impact to date on this species at all. We also did include some micronutrient mixes in the treatments as well. We saw no response from adding a micronutrient mix. The best thing we've seen so far as management is we have wiped Broomsedge with a 10% Roundup solution in 2 directions, and that seems to be fairly effective. We did that 2 years ago on some pastures over on the east side of the property, and it got mowed about 2 weeks after we wiped it, and that wasn't my intention for it to get mowed that quickly, but it was needed for a study, so that happened. And I was initially thinking that, okay, well, my wiping experiment is done, because we mowed it a little bit too early. But we came back the next year, and we controlled about 70–75% of that original population with wiping it that one single time. And we followed that up a second time with another wiping application the following fall. And we got about 95% of it. And most of what's growing there now is in the fence line where we can't get to it with the wiper. So we've been pretty pleased with that approach. So I think, once we get to that stage and get that done, adding some fertility into the system might actually keep that from coming back in. So just to give you an idea, we did wipe in August, and the Broomsedge was already sending up its flowering stalks. So we didn't actually wipe down into the actual grass blades themselves. We were actually wiping the stems. And again, I wasn't very confident that this would work very well, but it really did. So we are very excited about that. So I think we do have an option for selective control using a wiper, and then use fertility as well. Get your soil samples and get those tested. Test the Bahia grass tissues to make sure that your P levels are where they need to be, and apply what you need to get your grass growing healthy. Another thing that's been suggested by another colleague has been, we talk about fertilizing these pastures to make them more competitive with the Broomsedge, and they're suggesting that maybe we're fertilizing, we're making the Broomsedge more palatable so the cows are actually grazing it more readily. And that is a possibility. And it's one thing I hadn't thought of at this point. So it's something else to look at in the future. We do research, we get new ideas. So does anybody have any questions about this? Yes, ma'am.
When you were talking about wiping the grass.
Okay, so she's asking what my solution was when we were wiping, and we used a 10% glyphosate solution. So Roundup at 10% is what we did.
Only 10%.
Yes, ma'am, only 10%.
Brent, how long did you have in your mind to wait before you mowed after you treated it with the wiper?
Okay, the next question I had was, how long did I have in mind, would I have intended for us to wait before it was mowed after we wiped the first time? And my intention was to wait at least 3, maybe 4 weeks before it got mowed. But 2 weeks looks to be enough at this point. Eric?
Any idea what time of the year is the best to do the wipe?
Okay. Next question is, any idea what time of year is best to do the wiping? And it really depends on what height differential you have between what you're trying to kill and your desirable forage. So we took advantage of its flowering stems, hoping for the best, and that seems to work fairly well. Another thought I have on that is, as it's flowering, it's getting ready to send a lot of its carbohydrates back down to the root system. So it's actually going to carry more of that glyphosate down into the roots and kill it.
Is it too late to wipe now?
Is it too late to wipe now? Again, I think it's going to depend on the species.
If you wipe in more than one direction.
Yeah, hold on. Let me finish this question. This one, if you can get height differential and down into this canopy, I think you'd be fine. But since this is already pretty much dead for the year, wiping this isn't going to do any good. These two, well, we still have green tissue. I think it'd be fine to still wipe those. And your question on wiping one versus two directions, we did wipe two directions. Yes, sir.
Is there any hope for doing something with this when it's in, like in Hamathi in a hayfield or something?
Okay, so his question is there any hope to controlling this in a hayfield situation where you will never have that height differential? And that's going to be a pickle. In Hamathria especially, because I really don't have any good options even when you cut it off and go right back in with something. With Bermuda grass and stargrass, I'm pretty comfortable with taking your hay off the field, coming in 7 to 10 days after it's cut, and spraying it with a pint of Roundup. That's fairly effective. You don't get it all, but you at least start hurting it, and you get that Bermuda grass and stargrass growing just a little bit quicker and a little bit more competitive. All right. Well, thank you.